Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Eric. Thanks for coming to this fairly early morning on the second day of DIGRA. We're about to kick off our session today with the experimental track lightning talks. So if anyone hasn't been upstairs yet, the experimental track is kind of new this year, and we really wanted to start showcasing games and prototypes of games at DIGRA as a way of kind of broadening our understanding of kind of academics in Australia around games. Yeah, so start the day with an acknowledgement of country, because that's the place where we're all staying. I'd like to acknowledge Ghana Yarta, the Ghana country, which is down the Adelaide Plains. I'd like to acknowledge Ghana elders past and present, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today, online, or whose work that we have kind of interacted with and whose history that we have kind of learned and taught. Thank you. Now, to kick this off, all of the presentations are going to be 5 minutes. I'm going to be trying to keep them really strictly to time, yeah? So you'll hear some sounds like when at 4 minutes 30, and then at 5, we'll do some sounds. Yeah, it should be good. We have around 12 presentations this morning, 5 minutes, so we'll get into it. First up, we have Recollect, which is presented by Nellie Seale, and is a team from the University of Melbourne. Yeah, thank you. I should also say that we're going to hold questions just because what I'm trying to encourage people to do is go and talk to these people and look at their games upstairs. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Nellie, and I'm going to present a game that I got to help make for the Science Gallery down in Melbourne called Recollect. Bouncing off Sophia's acknowledgement of country, I'd like to acknowledge that this game was made on Wurundjeri country. Science Gallery celebrates First Nations peoples as our first artists and scientists. And I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to any First Nations people here today. I'm mostly going to talk about the context of the game rather than what it actually is as a game, and what it's doing in the gallery, which is what I usually talk about at DIGRA. My PhD research looks at how museums use games and the experience of playing at a game in a museum. This game is meant to be played in a museum. We do not have a museum here that maps to this game. Come and play it upstairs and I'll talk to you a little bit about kind of what it's intended to do. But in terms of how it got made, so I got a team of 9 students, one from each faculty at the university, to kind of come in, do this, I guess, work experience aspect of making a game. So it's quite similar to, I think, what Cam was talking about yesterday with the game jams, but in just a very weird context, because Science Gallery is part of a network of science galleries that exist. There's 7 of them all over the world. They're all attached to universities, and so they have this specific remit to engage with research and to engage with students at those universities. And I work in the team that specifically does that at UniMelb, where we're trying to get students from the university to come into the gallery, whether that's for class or just kind of for entertainment or for these kind of sometimes really weird and specific projects. And so because my PhD research looks at games in museums, my boss was like, would you like to make a game in a museum? And I was like, yes, that sounds great. We got some funding from this from Chartered Accountants, ANZ, which is a really weird company, I think, to be funding a game, but we're very grateful for that support. They kind of were very hands-off. They said, here's some money, you can go and do this. We're really interested in having these kind of learning outcomes and giving these students a chance to kind of experience a creative project with a client in a very safe to fail situation. So that the original point of this game experience was not that they were going to produce something that was going to be amazing for the gallery and bring a lot of people in. It was that they were going to get a learning opportunity. None of them had made a game before, by the way. And that was going to be something that they could sort of speak to, add to their CV. At least one of them has gotten a job out of this. I was a reference for him. In terms of the game itself, it's actually pretty chunky. For a group of people who have never made a game before, it's pretty long. The way it works is that you are playing as a little character who has lost their memories. So the idea of recollect is that you're going to go and collect your memories through the game. It is mapped to the Sci-Fi Mythologies Transformed exhibition that's in the gallery at the moment. We designed the game before the exhibition had been put up, which meant that it's come to us from Art Science Museum in Singapore. So we knew kind of what the works in the show were going to be. We just didn't know where they were going to be. So the exploration in the game is still a little bit whack, but that's okay. But the idea is you go through and you're trying to go and go to these planets which represent chapters in the exhibition, and interact with both the themes that the artists are trying to explore through their work and the way that that is portrayed through the NPCs in the game. To actually move from planet to planet, you need to go and find a code, so it's a bit more like a treasure hunt, and input that in there. And I'm probably going to leave it at that. Please come play it, come talk to me about it. I have a lot more to say about how it got made, but 5 minutes is very short.
Yeah, that was just over 3, which is fabulous. And in a little fun turn of events, we're gonna have Nellie back in a different hat. We're doing double up with Tom Lang, which is gonna be about This Is Fine, a mega game about heat in Western Sydney, which is in the tabletop room upstairs.
Hello, it's me again. So as well as being a PhD student and working at Science Gallery, I also run Melbourne Mega Games. Before we get into this, you can take photos of this one for personal use, but please don't post it on social media. The game is actually being launched in the middle of this month. And until that has gone live, we've been asked not to post about it. I'd like to acknowledge that this game was made on Wurundjeri, Bunurong, Gadigal and Darug land. So it was a Sydney-Melbourne collaboration. And I'd like to extend my thanks particularly to the First Nations colleagues on this project. So Melbourne Mega Games was contracted last year to make a climate change mega game for the Powerhouse's 50 Degrees Climate, Heat and Resilience program. I'll talk about what a mega game is in a minute, but I might just give Tom a chance to introduce himself.
Oh. Sure. Hi. For those of you who I haven't talked to already, I'm Tom Lang. I am not an academic. I am a game designer and science communicator. I don't know. I feel like it's important to say. I do a lot of work with museums, typically in the education, public programs, school programs, that kind of area, and a bit of climate change stuff as well.
So when Powerhouse called me and they said, we'd like you to make a mega game for us, I went, hey, Tom, I have to finish my PhD. I'm going to talk a bit about the project itself, and then Tom's going to talk about the game. So the 50 Degrees program is a Year 9-10 interdisciplinary project. It was funded by the New South Wales Office of the Chief Scientist and Engineer. And it's a term-long program that's going to run in schools. It was developed by the Powerhouse. And it runs across curriculum. So in all of the classes, the students are going to be engaging with this project in some way. 9 schools have signed up, which is about 1,000 students. And this is the first year it's going to run. So it's happening like as of next week. And to kick off the program and to introduce the students to kind of the concepts they're going to be dealing with around heat, the Powerhouse wanted to use a role-playing game, which is where they have commissioned a mega game. Mega games, for the uninitiated, are large, immersive social storytelling games. I've shifted away from calling them role-playing games because they don't have kind of the same concept of character role-play that we think about with LARPs and tabletop. They rely a lot more on board game-like mechanics, I think, to get the point across, but they run for the whole day. You play in teams. We usually run them for adults between like 20 to 200 people. And we had the unique challenge of designing something for classroom use with one teacher facilitating. Normally, we have a team of like 10 to 15 people who are running that game. We had to integrate real-world climate data and localization to Western Sydney. And I'm going to pass over to Tom to talk about how we did that.
All right. Oh, my drop shadows haven't worked, so it's going to be a little hard to tell what's happening here. But effectively, we had 3 major spheres. We tend to use the term spheres in mega games. I don't know if it's useful. We use it, I mean, universal, we use it in Melbourne. And a sphere is like, it's like a mini game. So one set of teams are in the local council sphere. They're dealing with crisis management. They're handling heat waves that come in by rolling a bucket of dice and seeing which little people on the map are heat stressed by those dice. they're entirely dealing with this stuff. They don't know what's happening in the other spheres. So in every sphere, we've tried to have gameplay elements that are happening just within the sphere, where that little group of 4 people are working with each other, and then elements that are happening between the spheres. So this group is dealing with crisis management inside the sphere, but then they need resources from other spheres. They need money from state government. They need projects and research from the university spheres. So we've got our little climate card here. Every turn it tells you how many dice to roll and a little nasty effect. And then you've got some projects you can install over here that do useful things. There's a lot of text that a Year 10 student probably won't read, but you know, a man can dream. Let's go to the next slide. This is the research sphere. While the other guys are dealing with heat waves, these guys are rolling dice in kind of a Yahtzee style game to collect data and then using that data to research projects. I really wish the drop shadows have worked, but you get the drift. These guys live in a bit of an ivory tower. They're not directly impacted by the heat wave, but they're trying to make projects that will be helpful so that they get a bit of prestige and money. Next sphere, final important sphere, is the state government. These guys hold all of the money in the game and hand it out to the rest of the teams and decide on policy. And they have their own little agendas that sometimes conflict with other people. So hopefully all of these things happening at the same time creates a lot of chaos, a lot of discussion, a lot of negotiation, and then a lot of things to talk about in class afterwards. How's that sound? Anything else we need to cover? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Antranig. Anthony's fine too, I don't mind.
Oh, yes. Antranig, or Anthony, is now next for Courtroom Investigations, engineering a playful show and tell conversation.
Oh, it's got a touch screen on it.
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's the one. Timer on my thing. Bang, are we ready? Cool. Hello, everyone. Some of you might recognize me, some of you won't. I have just finished a PhD, and the logical thing to do after finishing a PhD is to make a game inspired by said PhD. So that's what I've done. This is something I've been working on secretly for about 2.5 years. And it is being published. I have signed a contract with the publisher. This is happening for realsies. I don't know. Oh, yeah. I do not know if Christy Denner is here, but shout out to her. She both gave me feedback on my game and then point me to a convention filled with publishers. And she's the best. So thank you to Christy Denner. I don't know if you're on Zoom or anything, but she's the best. So Courtroom Investigations is a game in 2 phases. Tends to go for about 20 to 30 minutes. Please come upstairs and play. It's really fun. You are a group of lawyers and a judge investigating a murder mystery. In the first phase, you draft clues using playing cards. So everyone has a hand of playing cards, and say you want to examine the victim, you play a diamond. Everyone flips up at the same time, and then you use playing cards to sort of resolve who gets what. You go 3 at a time, and then once the case deck is empty, everyone bids for a legal role, prosecutor, attorney, judge, and then you have a big argument. You show each other your cards, you say objection. And yeah, that's basically the game in a nutshell. The 2 lawyers are trying to convince the judge that they're right. Why is there a Ubisoft open world map in my presentation? What's going on here? This game kind of emerged out of my hatred for this type of open world design. Oh yeah, you're all looking confused. So allow me to explain. You know how it says 10 out of 12? I hate that. I don't want to find all 12 chests. I just want to find 3. And you know what? That's good. I'm happy with that. I don't want to go around and get every single chest because that's annoying. And if you don't have the option to say no to content, you're not actually saying yes to anything, right? Like the yes requires the ability to say no, whereas there's a big pressure in these games to just do all the content, right? Not a fan. I also didn't like how in Baldur's Gate 3, when you try to go to Act 3, it's like, you don't have enough XP. It's going to be really hard. You should go back and do some side quests. No, I don't want to. Some of those side quests seem really boring. I don't want to do that. And then the pandemic happened. So during the pandemic, I got locked in my little apartment, and I decided to use that time to play every single detective board game on the market. This is the best one. Just trust me. Get this, play it. Ooh, it's phenomenal. What I learned from this genre is that it is really fun to say no. It's even more fun when the game encourages you to say no. In these games, you have an open world to explore, and while you are exploring that open world, you only have a limited amount of time. You don't have enough time to find investigate all 30 leads that you're given. You've got time for 12. And so when the game presents you with a lead, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, I don't have time for that. You know, I would love to come to your party, but I don't have time. I have a limited amount of time, so I can't come. I love it. It's great. But there's still something in the back of my head while playing these games where I'm like, yeah, I love that I am given an excuse to say no, and in fact, saying no is part of the mechanics. But also, I paid money for this. I feel weird paying money for a thing and then only using half of it, right? Like, it feels odd. I want something to happen with the other half of the thing that I paid money for. Even if it's not me exploring it, maybe it comes back to bite me in the ass because I didn't explore it. How do I solve this? And while I was thinking all this, I was doing my PhD. Why is there a political compass, a personality test, astrology star chart, and a BuzzFeed quiz? To very briefly summarize my PhD research, I started by being obsessed with the choices matter controversies of the early 2010s. I went through a rabbit hole, and at the other end of that rabbit hole, I found this stuff. To briefly summarize all of this, there is something called the quantified self. And something that researchers have observed is that people who use quantified self technologies really, really love to compare their results. They love to go, ooh, what's your astrology star sign, right? Ooh, what kind of chocolate are you? What's your political compass results? What's your personality? People love to compare. It's called a show and tell culture. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, I think I've figured it out. I think I know how to do this. You have a game where you're exploring a murder mystery and you go in radically different directions, and then you all come back together for a show and tell culture. But it's like ludic, and it's like in a courtroom. So that's the game I've made. Please come upstairs. Please play it. I have 15 seconds. Here is some research that inspired me. There's actually other stuff that also inspired me. Please come talk to me about it. Thank you so much. That's it. Bang.
This is awesome. Loving this. Next up, we have Sidney Icarus, who's going to talk about Latent Cohort, centering imaginative agency, who's also in the tabletop room. Thank you.
G'day, hello, bonjour. My name is Sidney Icarus. My pronouns are they, them. I'm an Australian game designer living and working in Toronto, Canada. Have about 15 years under my belt designing games and simulation for military, healthcare, and consumer products. And I operate off one core truth, which is it is games that change people, and it is people that change the world. Let's talk about... No. There we go. Let's talk about this. This is an oil on canvas. It is called a Panoramic River Landscape with Hunters. It was painted in 1660-something by Philip Connick, and about 360 years later, it was hung on loan at the Art Gallery of Ontario, where I had the opportunity to see it. And when I saw it, it fills your vision. It covers a whole section of a wall. And when I saw it, I did the only reasonable thing a person could do. I grabbed my partner's arm and I said, we have to look at this one because it has dogs in it. Couple of good boys at the bottom. And anyone who's worked with a large oil painting knows that as you walk toward it, you kind of experience it in different layers. In this case, as you get closer and closer, the shapes, the subject matter falls away and you get left with technique. And in this case, you realize that Philip Connick actually didn't paint dogs. He painted a couple of brushstrokes that evoke the idea of dogs. Or for us here, there are pixels that evoke the idea of brushstrokes. And this experience gave me one question, which is, am I me or am I a series of brushstrokes and behaviors that evoke the idea of me? And that's where we get to a thing called agentic imagination. For years, for centuries, art has been doing this kind of thing, where the agent experiences, through technique, experiences an object, goes into a form of subjectification, this proxied embodiment, and then reunifies that to emerge a changed person, thinking about themselves when they think about dogs and brush strokes. Games, however, put the agent in the technique. The system is the self. We are uniquely positioned to leverage agentic imagination in order to change people and therefore change the world. And yet, we don't. For some reason, and I mean we, I mean academia and industry, I mean all of us in this room, are obsessed with the idea of agency as how people affect systems, not how people affect themselves. When we use catch cries like agency is art, we talk about things like Suitsian striving experiences with illusory goals that we leave behind us. When in industry, when Sledgehammer Games makes Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, they say you want reflection, we'll give you so much reflection. Press F to experience an agentic moment of human mortality. And so this is my rebellion. This is Latent Cohort. This is you, the player, pick up a postcard off a public rack. On it, you find out that it was actually a secret message to you. You were a sleeper agent this whole time. Now you've been activated. There are enemies hunting you. And the only way for you to survive is to act exactly as you would if you didn't have this knowledge. This follows in a lineage of games that explore play as perception, not changing what you do, but changing the meaning that you give to what you do. Sorry, did I say lineage of games? I meant a lineage of game, of one game, and it's the game. And to everyone else who was also terminally online in the 2000s, I have just lost the game, and now so have you. I value this idea of players walking away from games, being changed, leaving the game behind them, but not the lesson, not the experience. And so if you also would like to join me in exploring the way that play affects people and people affect play and the loop round and round for centuries, please come upstairs, be activated by Latent Cohort. I would recommend coming soon though, because unfortunately, this message will self-destruct.
That was fabulous. And also 30 seconds below time, which is great because Sidney was like, what are you going to do if I go over time? What are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Tackle you, I guess. So our last one is Xavier. Yeah, from the tabletop room, is Wishmakers, which Xavier is presenting for. But we also have Premeet Sidhu, who spoke yesterday, Logan Timmins, Vic Rawlings, and Lee Wallace as well on this. And yeah, this is our last one from the tabletop room, and then we're going to move into digital.
Hey y'all, I'm here to talk about Wishmakers. First of all, this is not a game that is designed by me, it's behind a team of people. So I just want to acknowledge that this is behind an effort where we're trying to bring queerness, gender, sexuality in a very informal way into classrooms. So in the team that we have education researchers, we have teachers, we have game designers, we have games researchers, and we also have an artist as well as just all kinds of people that makes this happen. And this effort has now recently turned into a team called Squiggle, which you can browse on our website. We've got 2 games at the moment, and one of the games I'm going to talk about is Wishmakers. So Wishmakers is a game where you play as a group of teenagers. You grew up in the same village, and you're kind of coming of age or growing up to a point the village has a wishmaker that wants to be like, hey, your time is coming up. So next year in spring, you're all going to make a wish together. And you've been tasked to meet the villagers that you have always known this whole time to kind of understand what kind of problems they have, what needs they have, and we want you to kind of come back with a wish that's going to change the village forever. So as a group of teenagers, you're kind of like understanding what's going on, you're trying to meet people, and you realize there's just a lot more that you haven't kind of quite figured out. And so this game is best described as a cooperative, imaginative storytelling game. It's not really quite a role-playing game, even though it kind of draws many of its qualities, but I think it's really more like a lightweight conversation theatrical storytelling game. So really, I want to talk about, similar to Nellie, the context of the game rather than what the game is like, because I think the context in this case is far more interesting. This game started, actually, we're thinking about, hey, how do we teach sex education in schools? Which is very different. Like, Wishmakers is not about sex education at all. But if you really think about back when you went to school, sex education really sucked, right? You probably have one day of like 2 hours with a clueless teacher who just basically says, don't get pregnant, like use condoms, like duh. And really, sex education is a lot more than that. It's not just about the whole reproductive mechanisms of human society. It's not just about sex. It's also about like human relationships, right? It's beyond consent. It's also thinking about how do we understand each other? How do we observe when things are good? How do we observe when things are not so good? And how do we kind of have conversations, make friendships to kind of better understand that, hey, how do you have a good date? How do you have a good breakup? So really, sex education, we think, really should be more about teaching how to have a great relationship. And with that, we also noticed that sex education in schools do not really have any concepts of queerness at all, right? There is no homosexuality in sex education in current schools, as far as I know. But somehow we've been speaking to a few teachers who are like, hey, we really need this stuff. We have kids who are identifying as LGBTQI+. We want to have materials for them. They're coming into us and we have nothing to kind of offer. So we've been talking, and we realized that rather than kind of going straight into thinking about how do we facilitate sex education, the issues that queer people experience, such as isolation, bullying, feeling not quite fitting, that kind of thing, they're not really feeling connected. So rather, we wanted to kind of tackle these kind of issues about how do we form bonds with friends and people we haven't met before. How do we form connections? How do we see people differently, and how do we appreciate differences, right? So we ended up kind of designing a game around like perceiving each other's strengths and differences and weaknesses, and you're kind of put into a situation where you are cooperatively trying to solve some problems, and everyone has unique ideas and how they perceive the world. So that's kind of like the context of the game. So in the last 53 seconds, 4 dot points. So one thing that I have also noticed in the school environment is that, we can talk about how teaching is often very much like I'm telling you stuff, you better memorize and repeat it back to me, right? Which hopefully no one teaches like that anymore. But a lot of the things about learning by doing is still very much not being embraced by schools, right? So we often are reading, watching a video, coming back with reflections, and we discuss. But we haven't really kind of like acted out. We haven't really put ourselves in the shoes. So we haven't really thought about this stuff and kind of maybe push a little bit to see what happens, which is, games are good at doing this stuff. Games are systems that helps us understand what could happen. So I think with game design and teaching, there's a lot more that we can do. And teachers are kind of stepping back at this point. They're like facilitators. They're not really teaching per se. So if you're interested to come and play Wishmakers, please come to upstairs, and I'd love to talk to you more about that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, the blinds. Fabulous. Thanks. Thanks so much, Xavier. Really appreciate everyone keeping on time. It's great. I love the watches. It's good. So we're going to move on to the digital track now. So I'm going to invite Hin Long Yiu, also known as Daniel, up to give a presentation on his game, A Highly Sensitive Experience. Yay! Fabulous.
Pretty nervous. This is my first time to the conference. And hi, everybody. Thank you. Yep. So the title of my project is A Highly Sensitive Person, which is based on my own experience and translated into a sensory processing experience in VR. And I'm from RMIT in Melbourne. I am a master graduate. Yep. And in the project, it is based on my experience as a HSP. It is made in Unity game engine and also interact in MetaQuest 3. So why I am making this project, and the purpose is I would like to try to visualize the everyday challenge of my own experience into a virtual reality work. And we can show the outsider which kind of challenges we are encountering. And also, coping techniques is also included in the VR work. Yep, so I am working as a team. So the ideas is from me, and I got help from the game developer, team, and also a sound designer. So the inspiration of the project is come from Lu. It is a VR interactive about autism. In the work, it used first person and third person perspective to rationalize the action autism people may do. So virtual reality about sensory processing have rising attention, and yeah. So in the middle, we can see this is a work from Inner World. It is a platform allowing HSP people to communicate and providing support with coping techniques and to help them to support each other and doing better in the society. So HSP is first researched by Dr. Elaine Aaron in 1996. So in every one of 5 people, one people are considered relatively sensitive. So they may perceive sight and sound in an amplified way, and also they may be overthinking and fragile to pressure. So this trait will make us easily get overwhelmed, but in the positive way, we will have a deep sense of empathy, attentive to details, and we can also do good listening. So it's not a disorder, but it got a positive side, and also I would not say it's negative, but we can perform better. So this project is based on my own experience, and using autoethnography and practice-based research, I would try to generate new knowledge about design consideration for creating sensory-related virtual reality work. So these will be the potential findings. It will be in level, sound, and interaction. So in level and sound design, I would like to emphasize on the sound design because personally, I'm quite sensitive to sound. So it is in a quite dark environment and encourage the audience to focus on the audio effect designed. And also the environment, we are set it into a busy street, and also the working environment in a distracted workspace. So for the coping techniques, I'm trying to use the enacted interaction. So in the scene, the character will be situated in a busy street scene, as you can see. And so it will be used with general controller of the VR. And I'm trying to emulate the action of putting on the earphone. So there will be audio playing at the background, and when the earphone is put near to the head mount device, the volume will get louder. And also for the visualize, there are some visualized particles floating around the character. When you put the earphone close to the head mount device, and the particles will fly away. So if you have time, feel free to come to the sixth floor and experience what we are encountering. And this is my example of HSP, and there are many different variations of it. So thank you so much.
Yes, thanks so much, Daniel. I've played Daniel's work. It's excellent. I highly recommend it. So next up, we have Wrapped in Plastic, an exploration of input and narrative working in harmony by Murphy Doyle. So yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry for the online people. I'm raw dogging this without a presentation. So here we go. I'm Murphy Doyle. I'm a game developer from Melbourne, and I'm here today to talk to you about my project, Wrapped in Plastic, and input and narrative working together in harmony. So narrative has a way of connecting with people, and one unique thing that video games have is the ability of input. And I believe that input drags players from being passive observers into active participants within that narrative. And oftentimes I feel like, especially with narrative games, there is a lack of utilization with specifically input. A lot of the time, narrative games are relying heavily on things like narrative trees and dialogue options to get across their input. And I think this is a great technique, but the utilization of input could push these narratives further. And one idea I want to talk to you guys about today is the idea of consequential decisions and inconsequential decisions. Consequential decisions being that the player has an input and then, I'm going to steady myself a little bit. Consequential decisions, players have an input, those inputs have consequences, and that plays out throughout the narrative. And inconsequential decisions are inputs that the player makes that don't really have an effect on the structure of the narrative, but affect the players in a way by doing that input. Sorry, I'm a shaky person as well, so. So the way I want to talk about these are to elevate the way we use consequential decisions and inconsequential decisions being an unintrusive way to inject meaning into your narratives through input. One great example of this is the game Before Your Eyes. If you haven't played it, it is a game that takes your webcam and tracks your blinking, and you use the blinking in order to make decisions in the game. But at certain points in the game, a metronome will appear at the bottom, and if you blink, you jump forward in time. It's a real, your life flashing before your eyes as you're dying moment. So I took these ideas to make my project Wrapped in Plastic. And one key thing when I was designing it was that I wanted to create a unique input. So for at-home play, you use the mouse scroll wheel to control this conversation that your player character and the character you're talking to is having. And for here at Digra, I also use a record player that you spin a vinyl in order to control the flow of this conversation. Having this unique input helps the player better embody the themes and motifs that I'm trying to get across within the narrative, and allowing players to control the flow of dialogue, which better helps them understand and reflect on the narrative that I am presenting. It also changes the way the player interacts with the game, which I forgot my point that I was going to make on that one, but let's just move on. And the player is no longer doing an arbitrary input. They're not just clicking a button or clicking a dialogue option. Within the game, there are dialogue options, but they have to find and scroll back and go and find them themselves. And the big thing is that it ends on an inconsequential decision. The player can sit in that moment as long as they like, but the final input it doesn't change the structure of the narrative, but it changes the way the player feels about that narrative. And yeah, I think that's about it. I wish I had more things that I want to talk about, but again, 5 minutes is pretty short. Thank you. Please come up and play, and I will talk in a less formal way and probably be a little less nervous.
Cool. Excellent. Once again, another excellent game that I've played upstairs. Great. Highly recommend. Now can I invite Alexander Muscat up for Sight Unseen? Fabulous.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm Alexander Muscat. I'm a lecturer at University of the Sunshine Coast, and I like making games as well. I'm here today to talk about Sight Unseen, which is a game I've been working on for a while. And it's an extra, I call it an extra perceptual puzzle game, but it's really a walking simulator. And if anyone here is familiar with my research, I really like walking simulators. Yeah. So Sight Unseen, oh, time to Brendan Keogh as well. Sight Unseen is a game that really is in conversation with this quote by Brendan, which is that games are like inherently, even though interaction and input might seem like it is something that is reduced in a walking simulator, it is inherently active. The act of looking is active and it engages you at quite a deep level in games. And this is the kind of principle that guides Sight Unseen. And I've actually got some video that I'll bring up now in the browser so you can get a little bit of an idea of it. So this is a game essentially about charting out a mysterious world. It's a game where you walk around and you look and you move and you overcome what I call perspective-based puzzles. But really what it's about is the kind of conversation between the flat 2D screen that you're viewing the game through and the kind of, level or space, simulated space that you're moving through. So the game kind of hinges on a series of rooms or chambers that have some sort of trick in them, basically. And that trick can impact you in different ways, such as forcing you to stand in a certain spot or requiring you to, or multiplying your vision, where you can see certain things in some views on screen and you can't in others. And the whole idea is that your way of seeing the world is influenced and shaped by it, like very explicitly on the monitor. Also, like the art direction here, the flat sort of style is meant to enhance that as well. Now, there is like a kind of a narrative in the game as well, which is it's about discovering things and charting out this world and building a map of an ecosystem. But this is in a prototype stage, so I've really focused much more on the art and the mechanics. And I was lucky enough to receive some Screen Vic funding to work with collaborators on this too. It's also a game that is aiming for commercial release, likely on Steam too. I've spoken to publishers and everything, but an experimental game is quite a hard sell. And this is part of the kind of experiment of this game in figuring out like how can you translate game design theories that are a little bit more aconventional to a broader audience. So the inputs of this game are quite simple. You move with the sticks, you look with a stick, and you can teleport, but that's sort of just to get around game-breaking bugs at the moment. It's all about, the idea of like finding the right places to look at things and also being influenced by those too. So the idea is, you perceive and puzzle through sight, you react and adapt to your surroundings, but also what displays on screen, discover and learn. And then ideally, when I have more time to work on this game, because it's quite hard doing it when you're teaching and doing research, is that you build a map of the kind of world that you're exploring. Now, underpinning this, of course, is a more serious research-based purpose. It also helps when you're making a game that aligns with research because time is finite and it's pretty tricky getting your research outputs while you're developing games. So what I've tried to do with Sight Unseen is like really ground it in my prior research into designed ambiguity, but specifically focusing on areas of contextual framing, guidance, and novelty. And also like really focusing on this idea of the ordinary in game experiences, that inherent complexity in the act of looking as well. And yeah, I've done quite a bit of public playtesting, but please give it a go upstairs. It's quite unpolished in terms of its puzzles, but I always love feedback. And if I'm not around, please ping me on the Discord, and I'm always happy to chat. And if you don't get to play it at the conference, shoot me an email and I'll send you a build. Just don't share it with anyone. It's not released yet. That's everything, and thank you very much.
We're getting closer to the end now. The next presentation is by Michelle Chen for Mini Melbourne. Yeah, I'm super excited for this one. Not that I haven't been for everyone else.
Okay, it's really weird to be welcoming people to Melbourne. So anyway, this is a project I made for the Immigration Museum in Melbourne. So I would just like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nations on whose land that I conduct my research and create video games. So 2 years ago, Museums Victoria had a call out, and they're like, they want to find culturally and linguistically diverse people to create anything they want for their museum. So there's Immigration Museum, Melbourne Museum, and Science Works. And since I make video games, and I was like, and coming to Australia as a immigrant and also growing up as a third culture kid, I was like, what can I do? So I proposed to make a game. There we go. Oh yeah, this is me. And obviously I have to create me in the game, and I'm kind of like the little tutorial character. And it's mostly like building on to my PhD research, which was all about participatory arts. And I kind of want to explore how can I bring people who normally do not make video games into that video game process with me. And also exploring that experience that of a migrant coming to Melbourne and then sharing stories and meeting diverse people. And so it all starts with creating your little custom characters. And also the fun thing about creating games for the museum and holding workshops at museums is you never know who comes. So I had 6-year-olds, I had grandparents bringing the 6-year-olds, and groups of school kids, all sorts. So I wanted to think about like coming up with a way for them to be able to contribute to my game with minimal effort. So first they get to create their little characters, and how can I make that character customization as free as possible with minimal effort on my side. Side note, I responded to this call out thinking that I would finish my PhD before this project launched. Obviously, PhD don't happen the same way. So I made this game, conducted workshops while struggling to finish my PhD, but that's done now. So basically, and I'm also the artist and programmer for this game. So I wanted to minimal effort for me, but high customization for the players. So I was like, okay, people can pick up the little spray paints and they can customize their clothes. And this is based on an actual uniform I had, because part of the RMIT art squad that we had for orientation, this was literally our uniforms and we literally drew on them. And it was really cute because then even though we all wear the same thing, it is very, very unique. And so in this little cartoon version of Mini Melbourne, it's Flinders Street, starting with the Immigration Museum, Flinders Street Station, Federation Square, and you walk around and you get to meet all these characters. And all these characters are created by all the people who attended my workshops. So they customize their characters and they exchange stories. So they kind of, you can pick what questions you want to ask them, and then you also answer. And all of your answers are saved in my little cloud database. But because it's a museum, I do check their answers to make sure that nobody's saying anything inappropriate. But, you know, normally people are pretty chill. And, you know, whenever you have people custom and be able to draw things. They draw something inappropriate. The only person who did that is the musician I worked with. All the participants were great. So this is a little kid that came, and the fun part is, so they get to type their answers, and I don't correct their spellings, I don't change what they say, because I kind of like seeing that. So when you talk to this character in the game, you're like, yeah, he's like a kid, and then the way he talks feels like a kid. And yesterday I was talking to Nicholson, who also pointed out that if you like have people who are from culturally linguistic backgrounds, like the way we type, the way we speak are also not similar, and then you could also kind of see that reflected in the dialogue. And basically, this game doesn't exist without the people who are playing them. And instead of having like an MMO where people join at the same time, this one is a fixed experience. When they create the game and the workshops, they live basically in my world now. And so, yeah, so this is a photo from the workshop. And if you want to be a character in my little mini Melbourne, which may be back in the Immigration Museum soon, come upstairs and check it out. Oh, and yeah, that's it.
Cool. So one of the last kind of live ones, I'm going to ask Matthew Ganther to come up, talk about late night delivery. Yeah, great.
So I actually wasn't really planning on speaking today, and then I was like, oh, I've come all this way, so I might as well say a few words about my project, Late Night Delivery. So hi everyone, my name is Matthew. I'm a recent master's graduate from RMIT, specializing in games, and I'm here today to talk about my game, Late Night Delivery. This is a first-person, low-poly horror game that was developed as part of a paper I wrote exploring how limiting players' control of the character intensifies feelings of fear in a horror setting. So I broke this down to 3 subtopics. The first one, environmental interaction limitation, exploring the relationship between character control and the environment. So limiting what objects or artifacts can be controlled. So like opening doors, picking up objects, that sort of thing. The second one, restricted character movement, straying away from the classics first-person keyboard controls or just handheld controller schemes in favor of more unconventional ones. For example, point-and-click movement or even voice control. Lastly, enforce character behavior through predefined character feelings, motives, and personalities that have been established through cutscenes or dialogue. For Late Night Delivery, I wanted to design a game that allowed for direct comparisons in character control in the one single game. And I put the majority of the focus on restrictive character movement for this project. The character is by default controlled with standard first-person keyboard scheme, WSD, and mouse for looking around. What happened? However, this character you play as suffers from constant panic attacks. And when you're in this panic state, you change how you control the character. So you change to default controls to a point-and-click scheme, sort of like a dungeon crawler where you click to where to move, which really limits the player freedom, and it doesn't allow for smooth or quick movements. So let me just quickly explain the outline of the game first. You play as a food delivery driver on your last order of the night, and you have to go to this very seedy sort of apartment building, the one you sort of cross the road to the other side of the street if you have to walk past. You have to traverse all 6 floors to get up to your customer, and you meet all sorts of strange people, and you run away from even stranger ones. Each floor is carefully designed to easily observe player reaction to specific mechanics at specific times, and I'll go over them now quickly. Floor 1 establishes the narrative, showcases the beginning of the horror elements, default control scheme, dialogue, and interaction system. Floor 2 establishes the panic attack system, so you get a feel for how the controls work before you're thrown in the deep end. Floor 3 introduces the real threat and sets the baseline for the player reactions to being chased and stalked by the enemy AI. Floor 4 simply just progresses the narrative. And finally, Floor 5 puts the AI threat and the restrictive controls together, which highlights the proposed heightened fear and tension compared to the reaction on the 3rd floor. So I decided to come to Digra. Would be a perfect space to showcase my game research. It's still ongoing and in progress, and I hope to receive feedback and start some discussion on the impact of restrictive controls, good or bad. Thank you.
Last one in this room is my one. Help me, George. And this one's recorded because my project is in collaboration with the History Trust of South Australia, which is a organisation here on North Terrace, and my collaborator, is unable to be with us this morning, so we pre-recorded it. So yeah, now I get to watch it. Yep. Very exciting. Cool. Great. Good morning, Digra. My name is Sophia Booij, and I'm a third-year PhD candidate with UniSA Creative.
And I'm Michelle Fulham. I'm the Manager of Education Programs for the History Trust of South Australia.
So we're here at Digra to present our first playable prototype of the visual novel First Day, which aims to familiarise South Australian students with parliamentary process through the lens of an infamous part of our country's political history, the 1975 constitutional crisis, also known as the Whitlam dismissal. In this game, you are running late to your first day as a junior reporter at Parliament House. What you don't know is that it's the 11th of November 1975 and things are about to get very messy. Your boss has tasked you with sourcing some juicy info for tomorrow's politics column. And as you explore Parliament and you interact with people who work there, you begin to realise something really dramatic is afoot.
The aim of the game is to sift the information you gather to present a coherent story whilst also making decisions about reliability and truth. As designers, we have been interested in how simple choice-based games like First Day can be realised within the museum settings through the use of tailored games and design documents and software.
So First Day is a visual novel, which is a genre of interactive fiction, which is also known as choose your own adventure, that revolves around character-driven narrative and simple graphics. Usually just a static background and a speaking character sprite. You can add in voice and music to these games, which is our intention, with further versions to assist literacy. But really, this genre is very scalable to skill, kind of as per my current character designs. We chose visual novel as a genre for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a new design kind of genre to both of us. And secondly, we thought it would be really useful for players to get a physical sense of Old Parliament House through the graphic backgrounds of the game. We have used Ren'Py, which is a free open source visual novel design engine that's fairly simple to use for a non-coding expert. Like, there is a lot of source documentation online.
It's also important to note that the game is historical fiction, and as such, we're not concerned with just presenting all the facts and figures, but rather encouraging the development of a historical, critical gaze.
So this game actually started out from a conversation that Michelle and I had, where I asked, is there anything that you have always wanted to do or to talk about or to make a game about? And it turns out, yes.
So we wanted to find a way to teach students about democratic principles and parliamentary process that was both entertaining and meaningful. So using the highly dramatic events of the dismissal provides an engaging hook to unpack these concepts and has the added benefit of aligning with the 50th anniversary of the dismissal in November later this year. So First Day uses interactive storytelling to immerse players in the old Parliament House and introduce them to complex political procedures, as well as the dramatic events of the 1975 constitutional crisis. It will sit alongside a teacher's guide for in-class learning that focuses on basic understanding of the functions of the lower and upper house, alongside the role of the Governor-General. 4 possible investigative conclusions can be reached, and 3 of them will be conspiracy-based to encourage some interclass discussions and thinking, and a consideration of history as truth.
So moving forward, we're really still at this is the first playable prototype stage of first day as a project. So what really our goals are to complete this prototype that you can see in the experimental track. We also want to create all of the accompanying materials, so the teacher's guides, etc. And then we also want to explore partnerships and grants for graphic design and like kind of further development for this game, and kind of think about how games like this can be made and then kind of what would be a word like supplemented, used supplemented by kind of collaborations between institutions. Yeah, great. And then last slide. Great. So first day is expected on the 11th of November 2025, the 50th anniversary of this dismissal. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great. So we have one more presentation, and then we're going to go into morning tea. But the new thing about this presentation is that it is actually upstairs. So we're going to head upstairs and talk to Hugh about his project, Playing the Past and Future, a divination game. Fabulous. Upstairs we go.